Some of our family members look very similar, while others look like they came from a different family altogether. What makes even our closest relatives sometimes look like complete strangers is sexual reproduction. This is reproduction that requires fertilization of an egg by a sperm. Sexual reproduction accounts for the great variety of individuals in numerous species. While an individual does get its genetic information from its parents, that genetic combination is different for everyone. It's what makes you, you, and me, me. You may recall that the sperm and the egg are both haploid gametes, which are cells that contain only one set of chromosomes. As you stand right now, you are a diploid organism because your cells have two sets of chromosomes. You got one set from your mom and one set from your dad. This makes sense, right? Because if your mom sent you a full diploid set and your dad sent you a full diploid set, you would have two full sets from each, giving you 4 sets of chromosomes. If you met up with someone else who also had 4 sets, and you then created offspring together, those offspring would have 8 sets of chromosomes. As you can see, this would get out of control very quickly. The process that keeps half of a diploid's chromosomes from getting passed on to the offspring is called meiosis. This is cell division that produces haploid gametes in diploid organisms. These are the only cells in your body that have half the number of chromosomes because these are the ones that create offspring. When the two gametes, the sperm and the egg, combine, the result is a full diploid organism with half of its genetic material from one haploid gamete and half from the other haploid gamete. Just think as haploid as having half the chromosomes of diploid, and you'll have no trouble remembering which is which. Meiosis not only helps ensure that our offspring have the right number of chromosomes, it also contributes to that genetic variation we talked about before. During meiosis, cells are split so that genetic information is divided up into multiple gametes. The genetic information you got from your parents is randomly divided, and this random distribution of paternal and maternal chromosomes is called independent assortment. There's an incredible number of possible combinations from independent assortment. The total combination of chromosomes for any species is 2 to the n being the haploid number for that organism. So for humans, who have 23 pairs of chromosomes, 23 being our haploid number, there are 2 to the 23rd possible chromosome combinations. That's over 8 million different possibilities. And that's just your gametes. That means each gamete you produce has one of these 8 million combinations of genetic information that you got from your parents, but so does everyone else's. Of course, their genetic information came from their parents, but you can see how each individual contributes to a great amount of genetic variation. But you don't make offspring on your own, right? You have to combine your genetic information with someone else's through fertilization. Now we have an even bigger number of possible genetic combinations because now you're combining 8 million genetic possibilities with another 8 million genetic possibilities. That's about 64 trillion chromosome combinations for just one offspring you two produce together. This in itself is pretty overwhelming to think about. You are who you are because your parents' genetic information combined in one of about 64 trillion different possibilities. You could have ended up so many different ways. But there's more to genetic variation than just which sperm and egg come together. There's another process that occurs before the two gametes even meet that accounts for much of the variation we see in individuals. Sometimes during the first part of meiosis, something called crossing over occurs. This is when two chromosomes pair up and exchange segments of genetic material. This exchange of genetic material allows for genetic recombination, which is the creation of genetic material that's different from that of the parents. Genetic recombination contributes to genetic variation in offspring because it creates new genetic material that would otherwise not exist. Neither parent has that genetic makeup, so it's unique to the gametes, further increasing the possible genetic outcomes. Each of us is a unique individual because we have different genetic makeups. We get that genetic information from our parents through sexual reproduction. Both fertilization and meiosis contribute to genetic variation. Meiosis reduces the number of chromosomes so that gametes are haploid, or cells that contain only one set of chromosomes. In humans, there's over 8 million different genetic possibilities for each gamete we produce just from the independent assortment that occurs during meiosis. When combined with another gamete during fertilization, there's over 64 trillion possible outcomes for any one offspring. Meiosis also contributes to genetic variation through crossing over. This exchange of genetic material across two chromosome pairs occurs sometimes early in the meiosis process and creates new genetic material that would not otherwise exist. Creation of genetic material that's different from that of the parents, or genetic recombination, is the result of crossing over, and it further increases the possible variation that can occur because now we have new genetic material to work with.